Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Abe with MysticGenMara.com, a small town mystic from the middle of Idaho. And tonight I would like to introduce you to another stone or crystal. This one's more of a stone than a crystal, but it is a very common stone, really. And it has some fun little energies with it, and that is the stone or crystal of agate. And this is agate in a very raw form. I mean, to the point where this has been cracked. There's a lot of fun details with agate that we'll jump into here. Agate as a base energy, we have strength and courage. And then, of course, we have the love aspect, because most of the more common ones do carry that. Healing, which is all around the body, but we'll get into some specifics here shortly. That word is difficult today. And then it also works with longevity and protection. It's that increasing of health, increasing of vitality. And then we also have, and this is kind of a fun one I'll go into a little more detail on, agate has the aspect of encouraging gardening and growth. Something not all the crystals do, but this one's kind of fun. So let's get going. It's a very smooth looking stone, and it's usually worn or carried, and if you're carrying it like in your pocket, you're going to want a piece that's more polished, something along these lines. This one has a little piece of green in it, and these are all different stones that some of these I've polished, some of these are raw that I've been gifted or given. But you can, and the polished ones make really nice pocket stones. This one's got some little starbursts in it. But because you don't really want to carry around something like this, it looks smooth around the edges, but I can tell you that this will cut a hole in a pocket, so you probably don't want that in your pocket. And wearing some of the bigger ones like this are not conducive. That's where you want the smaller versions. And much like another crystal I haven't spoken fully of here is agate has the ability to enhance any ritual. If you're meditation and you're focusing on a specific goal, finding the agate of the appropriate color is going to enhance that. And the reason I say like another crystal, quartz is very, very similar to agate in almost every aspect. They're both silicon dioxide based. Agate is a little bit softer. It's not quite as hard as quartz. Agate comes in between 6.5 to 7, whereas quartz sits at 7 out of 10. So you're pretty close there. Agate and quartz are often found together, much like, there's this guy here. You can see there's a little quartz inclusion into this one, and you have the stripes of the different agate. This is kind of a fun raw piece because you can see just how nature does what she does. And she's quite the artist when it comes to the quartz and agate collection. And it also makes sense because they grow in similar ways and they're made of similar things. I read one time, and feel free to correct me in the comments, that agate is the faster cooling silicone, whereas quartz takes some time, and that's what allows it to really form those beautiful quartz crystal shapes. But I can't even find where I read that, and so that was years ago. Who knows? But it's the similarities there are also in the energies and how they show up. Agate and quartz both carry energy based on the plethora of colors, and so it's dependent on the minerals that are around as to what colors. Like this one, if my camera will be nice, is more of a green hue to it, so there's a little bit of copper probably, or something along those lines. The more reddish browns, kind of like this little dude here, there's a high likelihood it's iron or something along that lines. And there's a list of other minerals. Those are just generals. Most commonly, agate is in its white form, white, or with the red. Tends to be the more common ones. I have some little pieces that are about this big that are white and red, but I, for the life of me, do not know where I put them, so obviously they're not meant to be in this video. And like I said, that's not the limit of the agate colors. If you've ever held an agate, and if you've never held a raw agate like this style, this may not be something you're fully going to pick up from something that is more polished. And the reason I say this is the feel. And one of the quickest ways that I found to find genuine agate, it's hard. You can't scratch it with your fingernail, but it feels waxy. It feels like it should be, you should be able to scratch it with your fingernail. Not gonna happen. But it's also, when it's polished up like these guys, it takes on the feel of glass. It feels very hard, very smooth, like it shouldn't look the way it does. It's a very interesting crystal. Agate can be found on just about every continent on the planet, literally in the oceans, on the beaches, everywhere. I'm not for sure on Antarctica, but I would like to think that agate might be crawling around underneath the ice and snow down there, because it's literally everywhere else in some form. So, in the olden days, this is where the gardening part comes in fun. The gardening aspect was actually really a common theme with agate. And it was said while gardening, it was worn as a bracelet. Some of the agate bangles you'll see, or on those armband things, I don't know what they're called. You would wear them while gardening, and it would actually ensure the fertility of your crops. And it also would bring out the best blooms of your flowers. So if you are someone who likes to grow things, wear a piece of agate while you're out there doing that, or even having agate in your flower pots or put it out in your garden space might be a good idea, just to enhance some of the colors. Moss agate was thought to be the most optimal for this particular aspect. Moss agate is pretty common, and weirdly enough, I don't have the really good moss agate. The closest thing I have is these little guys here, which are pretty close but not exact. Come on, focus. And so if you do find real moss agate, it is a very beautiful stone, and it does work well with certain types of things. Anything green heart related, like love and romance, but also that gardening, fertility, and abundance part. And any of the green hued agates would help with this. Moss agate just happens to be the strongest version. If you happen to have fruit trees or an orchard or something along those lines, or if you have blooming trees like the dogwoods and things, it was believed that you could tie an agate in the branches of the trees, and it would increase the fruit or the flowers yield. And my thought when I first started really digging into this years ago was walking through a orchard, and there's just little agates hanging from the trees, tied with string or chain or whatever, and every time the light hits, you just get all these different interplays of colors. So it's a fun way to think about it, but it's also something you might try in your garden if you are looking to increase the yields a little bit. The more reddish colored ones, kind of, this is more orangish red, but it still has the hues. They are used generally in the love spells. The greens a little bit you can use for that too, but the reds are the ones that really carry that fiery oomph. It is thought that the red color draws people together, specifically in trust. This is a little more unique to agate. It's also thought that red agate could remove spite and make a relationship calmer. And I have a few people I'd love to send some to. But it's a way for people to come together in truth and honesty, and it was thought that it would work with the heart, but also heal the heart as well. So it's a very interesting stone. One thing I will say real quick here, if you decide to work with agate, it is generally a very gentle stone. There's a few stones out there that I've worked with that are pretty aggressive. Agate's more of like gonna slide in, gonna help fix whatever's going on, but it does so really subtly, so it's a really gentle stone in that respect. Agate can be worn around the neck, necklaces or something along those lines. And there's a specific aspect if you use the white, like these guys, or the more shiny version here. The white or the clears, and it's never truly clear. Agate always has a little bit of a hue to it, so don't go out hunting for like quartz crystal clear agate. It usually doesn't show up that way. But what it does when worn around the neck is it enhances a person's ability to speak truth. So if you are someone who's always trying to people please, you are afraid of hurting someone's feelings, so you hide the truth, you don't say the thing you would like to, agate actually can help draw the truth out in a gentle way so that you can speak it more clearly so that others will hear more clearly, but also hear the truth of a situation. The other part about this is when you wear agate or carry it with you, especially if you're wearing a necklace version of it, this is how you hear the truth from others. It inspires that truthful nature in people, and that is specific to the whites and the more clear shaded ones. And so it's basically a truth sayer type stone. Not something that not something to be afraid of or ashamed of. I think more people need to wear it for that, because I feel like we would do better in society as a whole if we were just willing to speak truth. And if you're wearing an agate around your neck, especially a white one or one of the clear shades, I feel like you're going to have a lot more honesty amongst conversations. And that usually is a good thing. Going along with that aspect of it, agate also has been used in the past as a scrying tool, much like the crystal balls of old. You can find some of the bigger sheets that have been polished, and you can gaze into that. You can probably, if you have something polished like this, the little ones are a little bit harder to do because you're looking at something that's in your palm, or you're setting it on something and then you can see the background. Doesn't mean you can't use it, just might be a little more difficult. The color doesn't really matter with the scrying. It's important that you, in particular, resonate with this stone. So if you're out looking for a scrying mirror or something along those lines, and you find one that you really feel drawn to, but it's not the right color, that's fine. Agate will inspire and trigger the right parts of your brain to respond as you need to for scrying. So don't put the focus on this has to be the right shade. If it works for you, it works for you. Let's keep some of the other stuff off to the side. One thing that I will say about agate, before we get too far into the color schemes here, because we're getting close to that, agate is very commonly dyed. So if you are buying some of the sliced pieces that you see at some of the fancier rock shows and things like that, look out for the word dyed, D-Y-E-D. That means that they have infused, through usually heat, a color into the agate. Agate comes in an amazing array of colors naturally, but you'll notice that it usually is in layers, or it's in more pocky type stuff like this. When it's all one solid color, like some of the crystal coasters that you'll see, the quartz in the center with all the color around, watch out for those. There's a lot of times they're dyed agate, and you can still use them for other things, but there's something with that heat treating that I have found, it almost makes the crystal or the stone not as resilient or not as willing to work the way it normally would have, because it's being forced to be something it's not. So just be aware of that when you're out hunting your agates. Look for natural, look for ethical retailers. That's the best way to do it. And with protection, going into, along those lines, it was thought that if you wear or carry agate, it would prevent falls and stumbles. So it was very common for a child to have a piece of agate as a necklace or a bracelet or put in their pocket. And you would use the same thing with the elderly as well. It helped hold balance and ground people a little bit better, which also adds to longevity, because if you're not falling down and breaking things, you tend to live a little bit longer. Agate is also a powerful protection against all forms of negative magic or intentions, depending on what words you prefer. It has been thought that agate, when worn, can prevent or even protect against demonic attacks and possession. So it's one of those stones that you want to try to keep close, especially if you are getting more spiritual in your path, because the more spiritual you end up with, the more of a risk you're going to run into on some of that stuff. Just the nature of the beast, because as you heal, the wounds start to call forth things that you may not want to deal with. So agate's a good way to help remind them that they are not the boss. In the healing world, Carrying agate can protect against cold and illness. It also, if you happen to have a fever, especially when you're at home and you're just like, I'm not taking a bunch of pills, if you take a piece of polished agate is easier for this. Again, it's a little rough if you use these ones, and you just take and rub it across your forehead as you use whatever healing mantra you like. It can help discharge and release the fever so it won't stay around as long. And if you are healing an injury, you can hold the agate in your hand or place it upon the injury, much like I have a wound right here from my day job. You could take a piece of agate and set it on top of that. And I'm going to make this disclaimer, which I try to always do with healing stuff. This is for historical references. This is stuff that we used to talk about all the time. It's not medical advice. These are energetic tools that you can use. And just in general, you don't want to, if you have a big cut, you don't want to put just some random stone in it. Make sure there's like gauze or a band-aid on it, and you can set it on top like that. And the energy still works. It's just more of a don't make the infection worse type of thing. So holding agate when you are exhausted or fatigued can also refresh the body and mind. The way we are constantly running all day long anymore, 6 and 7 days a week, we never take time off. Even when we take time off, we're still doing something busy. Agate is a way to help bring that down a little bit. Settle the nerves, settle the internal must run feeling. With that, because agate is so gentle, when you start to come down from your random running around, you might actually start to release some trauma as well. And that's where agate is such a beautiful stone, because it's going to help you calm down, but it's also going to help you process without damage. So it's a good one, especially if you're dealing with some therapy and things like that. Have the agate around. If you have raw agate, just be aware it's a little rough. If you find a good polished piece, keep that with you when you're in your therapy session and just use it as a way to ground a lot of the frustration. It's not going to take it away. It's going to help you deal with it better. There's no such thing as a wet magic wand that takes it all away. It's the coping mechanisms and the ability to process. That's the part that agate's going to help with. Agate has also been used to heal, blood disorders and blood diseases, but also skin issues. So if you have eczema or psoriasis, this is a stone that might be beneficial to keep around. And it was at one point it was thought if you carved agate into a triangle and placed it upon your belly, it would help with intestinal issues. I'm not quite sure what the triangle was purpose was, but in general, agate can help with anything with the internal organ aspect, specifically intestines and stomach, but also you can use it to rub on skin issues as well. Which, if you have those the face rollers and the little face wiper, I can't think of the name of them right now, you can use those, especially if you find a good agate one that resonates with you, that's natural agate. Those could be pretty helpful for helping with skin issues. So, where am I at? Getting more into the mystic side of things, because that's always where the fun is, right? Ceremonial magicians, those who practice the really intense stuff, would carve a serpent on an agate and wear it to prevent snake bites and scorpion stings. Sometimes it would be a person riding a serpent, other times it was just the serpent. Some of the things that I've read about the term serpent used to indicate a dragon, which would be a protective energy as well. So it could be a dragon that was carved on there, which to me would be just cool in general. And it was also thought to prevent bug bites, to carry an agate, especially if the insect that you were protecting against was carved into the agate. So if you are, mosquitoes or ticks or any of that nonsense, if you can get a hold of one of these guys and get that particular critter carved into it, the lore was that the agate would be like, oh, this is the problem, protection against it. And the way all the bugs and everything are going wild this summer in July of 26, it might not be a bad idea to have a little agate with some bugs carved into it. Just a thought, just a suggestion there. And some of the more common meanings and colors that go along with the agates We have the banded agate, which I thought I had some here, but I do not, other than this big guy here. You can see how there's these little lines over here off to the side. They're curved. There's a bunch, a little bit right there. You can see at the top in the layering of the agate. The banded agates are working with protection specifically. They also work with the energy of fire. And what's interesting with that is you'd think fire inflames passion, except for in this one, it actually helps to regulate and cool a stressful situation. So banded agate is, even though it's a fire alignment, it tends to help keep things a little bit more stable, which is one of the mature aspects of fire, that Sagittarius aspect, I guess you'd call it. Black agate, which is not as common as you might think. I've only found a couple of pieces in my life, and this one is really cool because you have the really dark black, but then you have the graying, and then inside here is a little bit of, you can see the shinies, a little bit of quartz crystal in there. So this is a little geode that a friend of mine and I, we found each half of it, and it naturally fractured when we picked it up, so we each have half of this. Black agate is used for protection and courage. It's another good one to keep you cool in stressful situations. It's still aligned with fire, which is funny, but it's because fire, especially mature fire, helps you regulate your passions and understand when it's time to flare up and put up the fisticuffs, and when it's like, this isn't worth it, go away. So you have those two dynamics, but the fire aspect of agate is generally in its mature form, which it's like, you know how to deal with this. Now there are some, and I don't have any of these myself, but they have black and white stripes, or they're black with little white blotches, or white with black blotches, and those type of agates help you be protected from physical harm. They're more of an elemental earth energy, so they're a little bit more grounding in that respect. Earth works with the hearth, the home, and the family, as well as finances. So it's one of those energies that helps protect the things that are most valuable to you. I have an eyelash that's trying to fall out of my eye. There's blue or blue lace agate, and I do not have any blue agate, which is sad because I really like this stone. And again, you want to make sure if you're buying blue that it's natural occurring blue. You'll see some of this ridiculous robin egg shiny bright blues. That's not natural blue. That's the dyed agate. And it's not the same because a lot of times those agates are basic whites, or they might be another color, but because of the heat treatment to get the color to come out, it's not quite the same thing. So if you find agate, you want to make sure, again, it's actually blue agate and it's from a reputable supplier. And in that case, blue agate is going to help bring in peace, quiet, calm, much like the quiet of a lake on a very still day. The sun's shining, the birds are chirping, and you're sitting on the sandy beach. What is that feeling for you? It's where your internal system just settles. Your feet are in the sand or in the water, you're listening to the birds. There might be a little bit of lapping of the lake upon the sand, because that's what the water does. Even when it's glass out there, there's still a little bit of movement. But it's this quieting of the system. It's the quieting of the, must be up here all the time. No. And that's the beauty of genuine blue agate. And if you happen to have a stressful day job, especially if you have a desk job, keeping a piece of genuine blue agate sitting on your desk, gazing upon it, holding it in your hand if it's a polished piece, are ways to help deal with the everyday stresses. And it's a really good stone to enhance intuition, so if you find a big enough piece that's shiny, you can use it as a scrying mirror as well. So, the brown shades, which this is more, like I said, this is that orange-brown, red-ish color. It's more orange than anything else. I can't find my reds. This one helps bring in protection for warriors. So if you happen to be military, law enforcement, something along those lines, or if you happen to be a warrior in one of the other aspects, this is the stone for you. It was thought to bring victory to the wearer. It was also thought to bring success in anything where there was a competition or anything that you were really focused on and putting a lot of your effort and energy into, it would bring the wearer victory or success. With the browns as well as the reds, fire and Mars tend to be most aligned with it, so be ready if you work with that. Things can get a little intense, move really quick, but you'll be in a pretty good headspace while you're doing that. Green, again with the gardening aspect, but it's also good for fertility and reproduction, which is generally the aspects of green colors anyway. But it's also was thought that if you wore green agate of some form, even stuff like this with all the other little colors and inclusions in it, it would help the old peepers. Green agate was thought to improve eyesight and to relieve the stress of eye-related issues, which is kind of fun. Then we'll go into our moss agate, which I do not have a good piece of. Moss agate is unique because it actually looks like there's moss that's grown into the agate itself. Usually there's a clear layer and you can look down in and you can literally see the little moss pieces, or if it happens to be sliced, it looks so cool. I've seen some friends of mine have some and it is beautiful. This is that gardener's friend specific agate. If you wear it or place a good piece of moss agate in the garden, especially a prominent place like those pillars where you have like the crystal balls and all that stuff, stick a little piece of moss agate up there too. Or if you happen to be someone who uses like electroculture, things along those lines, wrap a piece of moss agate to one of your antennas and see how that might change the vibration just a little bit. This is the gardener's best friend as far as the agates go. It can also help your finances grow because moss agate triggers growth and abundance in the garden, abundance in finances. And moss agate can actually, if you wear it continuously, can bring in friends and maybe a little bit more than just a friend. And it's a very strong connection. It's an emotional bond, not just a physical one. And it's expected to last a very long time. This is where the longevity aspect comes in as well, is the green and the moss agates tend to be more focused on the long-term situations. It's not just short-term stuff. Good investments, good partnerships, healthy choices, all of that long-term stuff. It also can help you bring in the treasures of your heart. That might be a person, that might be money, that might be health, that might be the house and 10 acres, whatever it is. Moss agate is going to enhance your desires and focus them more clearly so you can actually get a good vision on what it is you're hunting for. And again, the last aspect of the fiery agate is the red agate. Another name for red agate is the blood agate, which I've heard a few times, but I didn't realize what that meant. When you see red agate or the red and white agate, the red and white looks like someone has cut their finger and literally bled across the stone. It is the weirdest looking stone. Beautiful, especially when it's polished up because it looks like it's still fresh, wet. Sorry, blood, but it is. But you also find the ones that are super intense reds, and it looks like the color of deep blood at that point. Like the solid red ones or the ones that are red with the quartz inclusions, they look like it's actually blood. It is the most amazing looking stone. Sometimes they're pure red, sometimes they've got white in them, and the ones with the quartz in the middle are really cool. It's also believed that the red agate helps with blood disorders and just help a body actually rest better. Agate is such an amazingly useful stone, and you don't see it very often because, it doesn't look that pretty. It's kind of blasé. Even when it's polished up, it's still, it's pretty, but it's not like quartz or amethyst or some of the other ones that just have this energy to them. Agate's not like that. Agate is the quiet one. It's the one that comes in and says, what do you need? Let's figure out how we can help you with this. And then it moves you towards that goal. So have you ever personally worked with agate? If so, let me know in the comments down below if you're comfortable with that. And if you did use it, how did it manifest for you? Was it really powerful? Was it pretty subtle? Was it more bombastic? Or was it one of those things where you're not really sure, but you just felt better because you had it? So how did things turn out when you play with your agate like that? Just to see kind of what other people are thinking. I know what my experiences have been with it, which have been pretty fun. But how about you? Let me know in the comments. While you're down there, hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. And I will see you guys in the next video.